Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. You're going to see my hands a lot, but not my face. I'm going to be going over the rest of the structures here. We covered this model in the last video. You can see the renal capsule, the renal cortex out here, the renal medulla. You can see the pyramids, the column, the pyramid, pyramid. You can see the minor calyces, the major calyx, and the renal pelvis. Now, one of the things that I want to show you is we're going to go over this model. This is a single pyramid. It's as if we cut this pyramid out right here. We twisted it and enlarged it. And what you can see is the renal corpuscle and the renal tubule, or nephrons. So this would be one nephron right here, this little white snake-like structure. And here's another one going in reverse because these are going in all different directions. This structure here, this part, is the pyramid. If you look at this model, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to move this to the center. I'm going to zoom in, and then we're going to focus on these models. Okay? So please bear with me as I zoom in a little bit, and I get really detailed here. It's a little bit hard to see, but every one of these little round white structures, these little white ball-like structures, are going to be one of these on this model. Okay? This long skinny tube right here that goes down to the tip of the pyramid is this tube. And these two little loops are these two loops. And it's showing you how many of these actual renal corpuscles there are on either side of each cortical radiate artery. And every one of these little white dots here is going to have one of these loops attached to it. So there's literally 1 million nephrons or more in each kidney. So now, I'm going to zoom in on this model. I'm going to move it over a little so that we can see all the detail that we need to see that I might ask on a lab test, okay? Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this out for a different model so that we're not stuck with all of this. The last thing I want to show you before I do switch is this. So if you see one of these renal corpuscles that's cut open with the glomerulus, this one right here is this, enlarged, so that we can see all the detail. So now, let me switch models. So I can zoom in and show you a little bit more detail. I'm going to try to zoom in just a little bit more and catch all of it. All right. Again, I apologize for doing this mid-video, but it's the best way to do it. I'm not that fancy and smart. So this is the renal capsule on the outside. This would be the renal cortex. This is a pyramid here. Here you see an interlobar artery in red and an interlobar vein in blue. I see an arcuate artery in red and an arcuate vein in blue. Cortical radiate arteries in red, cortical radiate artery in blue. I'm sorry, cortical radiate vein in blue. Arteries are red, veins are blue, except for the pulmonaries. Now, if I go up the cortical radiate artery, if I look very closely, there's a little red stripe, little vessel here going into this knot of capillaries. That little red vessel going from, let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay. This little red vessel here that's connected from the radiate artery to the glomerulus. This one, that one, and then these going in the opposite direction. Those are all called afferent arterioles. Remember, blood is going to come up, go through the afferent arteriole into the glomerulus, which is encapsulated by Bowman's capsule. So these are renal corpuscles here. The white outer covering would be the Bowman's capsule. The red structure inside, the blood vessels, would be the glomerulus. Here you see several renal corpuscles. On this one, we can see the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. So now, as blood leaves these, it's going to go into the glomerulus and the renal corpuscle here. It's going to come out through this vessel here. Those are efferent arterioles coming out. So if it's between the radiate artery and the corpuscle or Bowman's capsule, it's going to be afferent arterioles. If it's coming out going the other direction, then it would be efferent arterioles. Over here, the efferent arterioles are obscured by my renal tubule. And if you notice on this one, the efferent arterioles form this capillary bed called the peritubular capillaries and then drain into the cortical radiate vein. And I would have all of that over here and over here and over here, but they just took a lot of it off so we could see some other details. Now, if this is my Bowman's capsule, then this little knotted up piece of tubule here is the proximal convoluted tubule. It becomes the loop of Henle. This is the descending limb. Would go back up as the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. And then it curls right back here, and then it gets coiled up again. That's the distal convoluted tubule connecting to the collecting duct here. There would be a renal papillary hole at the bottom. If I follow this one over here, cortical radiate artery, afferent arteriole, glomerulus, the efferent arteriole is there or there, and then we have the peritubular capillary bed starting. They just took the veins off. This is the Bowman's capsule in white. This is the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, descending and ascending limbs. This is the distal convoluted tubule, and then the collecting duct. And every one of these little connecting tubules here would have all of this attached. Now, you notice a couple of things. One, the distal convoluted tubule always loops right back where the arterioles come into the glomerulus. And finally, there's this. Okay. There's two types of nephrons that are in the kidney, and they're named for how close they are to the medulla or how high they are up in the cortex. Juxtamedullary nephrons are the lowest ones down here, this first row across. Those nephrons tend to have much longer loops of Henle that go way down into the pyramid. Cortical nephrons are the nephrons that are up higher, and they tend to have a little bit shorter loops of Henle. And for the ones that go deep down inside of here, you notice we have these blood vessels that come down that form another capillary bed. These are called the vasa recta, which means straight vessels. These are your vasa recta that form another capillary bed around the loop of Henle. Now, if I can, I'm going to take one of these, and I can. We're going to cut it out, and we're going to magnify it. This should be the last of the urinary models. And this is this. This is a renal corpuscle. I have to adjust my camera a little bit so that you can see the whole thing. But this is what we were drawing out in the lecture, or at least in the videos where I have the drawings. So this is a renal corpuscle. This is the Bowman's capsule. This is the proximal convoluted tubule. That's the distal convoluted tubule. Over here I have the afferent arteriole. I have the glomerulus. I have the efferent arteriole. And notice the distal convoluted tubule is right where those come into the Bowman's capsule. The empty space inside of here is called the capsular space. The cells that line the Bowman's capsule are called capsular epithelium. So I have the capsular epithelium are the cells. The structure is the Bowman's capsule, and then we have the capsular space. Now, if you look at the glomerulus itself, you notice that half of it is tan and half of it is red. If you could zoom in on this structure, there would be a bunch of little pock marks or dots on here, and those are the fenestrations in the glomerulus. On this half of the glomerulus, they have removed the podocytes. And the cells that make up the walls of the capillary are called the glomerular or capillary endothelium or glomerular. Don't worry about those. So if you're following along on our list of things to know, we're on page 30 where it says renal corpuscle model. You need to know the Bowman's capsule, the capsular epithelium, glomerular epithelium. You can scratch off the list. It would be the cells that make up this wall. The capsular space you should know. The capillary endothelium is the same thing. Scratch it off. The podocytes are these little tan cells. The little blue dots are the nucleus of a cell, and the cell is like this, wrapped around a skinny little blood vessel. So this is a podocyte. If I ask you to identify the tan cells, they're called podocytes. And I'm going to show you the filtration slits. Those are the little red squiggly lines between two podocytes. And I'm going to zoom in on this in a second. The juxtaglomerular cells is this little layer of tan cells right here on the afferent arteriole. The macula densa is this thick layer of cells right here. And together, these cells and these cells make up the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Finally, let me zoom in really well so that hopefully you can see this. Okay, that's about as far as I can zoom in. Each one of these tan cells is a podocyte. If I look right here, I can see this little red squiggly line, and that little red squiggly line is the filtration slit. The little tan fingers on either side that are interlocking like this to form that filtration slit are called pedicels. And I can see a few pedicels right here with the filtration slit between them. All right? So, one last reiteration. If you're looking at your list of things to know and you're in my class on page 30, you can scratch off the glomerular epithelium and the capillary endothelium. We don't need to worry about them. Scratch them off the list. I don't care about them. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you learned something. And do this until you can't stand it. Do it till you understand it. And then do it 5 more times so you make an A on your test. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next videos.